What's going on, my friends? Today we're taking a look at the Cold Twisted Blades Rogue build, which I'm calling the Cold-Blooded Killer. This is the best rogue lockdown build in Diablo 4 at the moment. The build focuses on extreme lockdowns of your enemies. As the saying goes, the best offense is a good defense. Now, the build excels at freezing your enemies, and while they're frozen, that's when the Cold-Blooded Killer build dishes out massive amounts of damage with crits into the millions. Now, this is an up-close, in-your-face playstyle that includes nearly endless knockdowns, stuns, dazes, while constantly freezing enemies. This build is easy to play. It's excellent for leveling or nightmare dungeons. If this is something that interests you, then I'm about to show you how to build the near-perfect rogue CC build for Diablo 4. We're going to go over skill tree points, gear, aspects, gems, Paragon points, glyphs, and basic damage combos. But before we get into that, please make sure you give the video a like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the channel with the YouTube algorithms, and it would be greatly appreciated. Let's jump into the skill tree. For our basic skill, we're going with Puncture and Fundamental Puncture for the vulnerability on enemies. That adds 20% damage. Core skills, we put 3 points in a Stutter Step for the added movement speed. Now you're going to put 5 points in the Twisted Blades, and you're going to see I have 9 points here. Those extra 4 points are coming from our gear, and I'll talk about that in the next section. But as you're moving down the Twisted Blades line here, make sure you go with Advanced Twisting Blades so you get the cooldown on all of your abilities as your blades return to you. Agility skills, let's put 3 points into Concussive, and you're going to see here that after knocking down an enemy, you gain 12% increased critical strike chance. Now that synergizes nicely with Stutter Step, which when you critically strike, you get that 15% movement speed. So those two synergize nicely. Put 3 points into Weapon Mastery. Let's go up to Shadow Step and Methodical Shadow Step. Subterfuge skills, we have a lot going on here. We have 3 points into Exploit, 1 point in Agile, 2 into Mending Obscurity. Now moving over to Poison Trap, we're going to go all the way down and go to Countering Poison Trap, along with having Concealment and Countering Stealth. Imbuement skills, we want 3 points into Precision Imbuement for that added increased critical strike chance. Moving over to our Cold Imbuement. Now I have 9 points here. 4 of those points are coming from my gear, so make sure you put 5 here. And this added blended Cold Imbuement is crazy important for the build, and here's why. So you have a 20% chance to instantly freeze your enemy. When your enemy is frozen, you deal 60% extra damage, and it's going to be amplified greatly because of the way we have our Paragon board set up. And that's going to go into the several hundreds of percentage points when your enemy is frozen. So therefore, you're going to get those crits into the millions. So make sure you have it set up like this. You're going to be looking for gear that has these added bonuses, which we'll talk about in a second. But once the enemy is frozen, it adds tremendous damage. For our ultimate skills, we have 3 into Trap Mastery, 3 into Adrenaline Rush, and 3 into Haste. Our key passive is Exposure, and is a big, huge reason for this. So when you drop traps, you're going to drop these stun grenades. Also, when we're in stealth and we come out of stealth, we're going to drop stun grenades. Those stun grenades have a massive chance to instantly freeze your enemies. And again, when your enemies are frozen, you're doing massive amounts of damage. So this, as I've tested, is doing way more damage than close quarter combat. Give it a try, test it out. It's massively improving your damage. For our headpiece, we have the damage reduction aspect, but the most important thing you want to look for on the headpiece is that +4 ranks of Cold Imbuement. That's what really truly starts to amplify the damage even more, especially when they're frozen. Chest piece, now we have added armor here. I find that this aspect, along with the damage reduction, these two are pretty much mandatory in any rogue build. Taking a look at the gloves, the most important thing here is added ranks of Twisted Blades. And if you can get that +4, excellent. If you only have 2 or 3, that's okay too. Now, alternatively, you could use Frostburn. And as I was testing this out, yes, you do freeze enemies more, but with the +4 ranks of Twisted Blades, you're doing way more damage. So this is a much better setup. And along with that, we have the aspect here that is the game changer for the build. So chilled enemies hit by your grenade skills have a chance equal to double your critical strike chance to be instantly frozen. My critical strike chance is 34, so that's a 68.5% chance that enemies will be instantly frozen as soon as you come out of stealth. And as that happens, you're doing increased damage, multiplied damage as they're frozen. So definitely make sure that you have this aspect. If you do not have this aspect ready to go for the build, do not go with this build yet. This is hugely critical to the success of the Cold-Blooded Killer build. For legs, you want the aspect so when you hit an elite enemy, you get a barrier, and that's exactly what you're going to be doing. Every single pack or boss you go into is going to be an elite. So as soon as you have that first hit on the enemy, you're going to have the barrier. Therefore, you can drop all your traps, you can spam all your abilities, and you're not going to die. For our boots, we have Penitent Greaves. This is best in slot for the Cold-Blooded Killer build. You chill everything around you instantly, and you do added bonus damage. Now on your crossbow, the most important thing is make sure you get critical strike damage. And along with that, our aspect is Twisted Blades. It amplifies our damage to double. So make sure that you put the Twisted Blades aspect on your crossbow. Moving over to the amulet, the most important thing here is plus ranks of Frigid Finesse. Make sure you're looking out for that. Along with having that extra shadow step is absolutely critical to this. You can just zip around the map. You can stun your enemies. You can get out of danger. You're basically unkillable because you're zip-zapping around the map, you're freezing everybody, and Shadow Step is basically your get-out-of-jail-free card, so make sure you have that in this build. Taking a look at the rings, you definitely want to have this aspect right here, the Poison Trap aspect, before you start this build. If you don't, please don't start it. You're not going to have the effectiveness that you need. So as you come out of stealth, you can drop 4 traps without breaking stealth. And as soon as those traps activate, you're most likely going to drop a bunch of stun grenades. And as you come out of stealth, you're dropping more stun grenades, instantly freezing all enemies around you. This is really important for the build. On our other ring, we have attacking enemies with a basic skill increases your core skill, which is Twisted Blades, by up to 30%. So you're going to do that all the time, having that extra added bonus with Twisted Blades. And on your rings, you definitely want to be looking for max life and critical strike chance. It just really helps the build overall. All right, moving over to our melee weapons. This is very, very important. Make sure you have dual swords, not daggers. Big reason for that. Take a look at the extra critical strike damage on swords. Now, daggers don't have this inherently. You can re-roll at the enchanter and hopefully get it, but you can always have that on your sword. So make sure you have dual swords. As you can see here, my critical strike damage is pretty high, but as we have the Paragon board set up, this critical strike damage gets into the 500% range, and I'm not even min-maxed on my gear yet. But moving over to the aspects, you definitely want to have these two. So as I've mentioned a few times, as you break stealth, you're dropping that stun grenade, you're freezing your enemies, and it takes about 2 seconds to set up all 4 traps and to start whipping out that damage. So this amplifies your attack power greatly. Gems on your gear, you want to have damage reduction, but what I'm also noticing is that the max life is helping too. So you're not crowd controlled often because when you start the fight, you're freezing everybody. And if you're hitting those critical strikes, you're basically just wiping them out immediately. So I put max life here. You can test this out. You can switch these up. It's really not that important. But what is important is that you put the critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies on all of your weapons, along with having the skulls on your amulet and rings. And our specialization is combo points. All right, this is our starter point. I will include a link down in the description so it'll be a little bit easier for you to follow up on this. But I want you to follow through with me in this video so I can explain a couple of things here. So the first glyph that you want to put in is for Closer. It amplifies your cutthroat skill damage, which is Twisted Blades, dramatically. So just make sure you're filling this out so you're maximizing that damage with Cutthroat. For our second board, it is Exploit Weakness, and for your glyph, you want to put in Frost Feeder that amplifies your damage to all chilled enemies. And again, every single enemy you are going to be hitting is going to be chilled at least, most likely frozen, so therefore you're amplifying your damage on that one also. Third board is Leyrana's Instinct. Our glyph is Combat. Huge reason for that. As you can see, it's a massive increase in your critical strike damage, along with giving you energy back when you critically strike, and you're going to be critically striking often. So this is pretty mandatory for the build. For the fourth board, we have Tricks of the Trade, which is basically a 25% increase in your damage. Now our Glyph is Control, and this is going to be adding even more damage to crowd-controlled enemies, and literally every single enemy you are attacking is crowd-controlled. Here's how the combo works with this build. So make sure you have your imbuements on your weapons, go into Concealment, drop all 4 traps, come out, hit your basic ability, spam Twisted Blades, and they're gone. That is going to wrap up the Cold-Blooded Killer Rogue build for Diablo 4. If you guys enjoyed the video or learned something new, please consider supporting the channel by liking, commenting, or subscribing so you don't miss any future Diablo 4 videos. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.